bar is so low, and yet the Democrats can't seem to jump over it.
You can't get on one accord if you genuinely have different accords, you know?
Black voters are targeted relentlessly with disinformation and misinformation.
Do you really think that the white folks in this country, no matter what party, are actually interested in black power being able to organize at a level where we aren't dependent on them?
Conservatism is really sexy to a lot of people, right? It promises you patriarchy, it promises you money, getting rich.
You see how black grifters or black people who ride the fence but usually have conservative talking points, how we'll see them more in the algorithm, we'll see their stuff pushed more.
So I was saying how I wanted to convene all y'all to talk about the black vote and about the amount of media coverage that is paid to it while not paid to it, right? Because there's a lot of discussion about black people in terms of trying to hold the election on our shoulders and make it about us while not actually ever talking about any issues in the black community or what the black community are talking about a lot. And that's also kind of juxtaposed to this kind of rise in like right-wing commentary and promotion you're seeing on a lot of these blogs and online commentators and people that people are looking to. And so, I feel like it's been very, very difficult and disheartening to have voting conversations or what to do, I guess, as commentators and what's happened in this election. So I wanted to put that to the floor. And Ben had just explained. Ben, you go.
Just again, I think it's important. I think it's purposeful. I think the media is leveraging that stress point that they always use with us. What are black people going to do? Or they're preemptively blaming it on us like they did in 2016, like they did in 2020. But they are not going to discuss any of the issues that are pertinent to us. And they are going to continue to sow these seeds of dissent around whether or not we should even vote, right? So there's a lot of energy being sowed into making sure black folks don't participate this time.
Yeah. And what I was saying was like right now, if we're looking about the discourse online between our friends, our own families, the conversations that we're hearing all around, what I'm hearing is the same thing that we had during with like Trump and Hillary, right? They're trying to pull the lesser of two evils, right? And I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing here. And if you're looking just at the presidential campaign, if people are fearing that, this is what I'm telling them all. I'm like, okay, if that's a hard space for you to focus on, are you focusing on locally? Are you looking at what's happening in your state? You know, who's going to be the next leader locally for you? How does that help you and your community? What does that look like for you? So that's what I'm telling them to kind of focus on and lean into right now, because just not voting at all is going to be very detrimental. So,
I think I agree. I think we have to look at local elections. I'm a person who tries to inform the community on the judges we have to elect locally, because the judiciary impacts so many aspects of our lives, whether it be evictions, whether it be divorces, custody battles, so many things that impacts Black people. And in order for us to do that, we have to have real, genuine conversation, engaging organizations, engaging Black people on the ground. And I think, the social media atmosphere is a toxic one. And it tends to lend itself easily to the presidential election, when you always, the battles really in between like two people. It's always good versus evil, no matter what side you're on. And you just have a constant clashing of ideologies. And so like what I'm more interested in is like having conversations and robust conversations like these, because Black people also need to be able to process what has happened these past 4 years and what has been happening in terms of like what they've seen from Biden and what they haven't seen from Biden. But yeah, just more fruitful conversation where we can honestly like talk about these things instead of like, oh, I automatically got to vote for Biden. I automatically got to vote for Trump, which is like what I often see.
Yeah, I think that probably we should talk about, have that conversation about what Black people are feeling like they didn't see or did see from Biden, because the reality is I feel like the reason they every election they do this thing where they act like there's suddenly the rise of the Black male Republican, right? Like that's what they're doing. They always do it. Meanwhile, Black people vote in the 90-something% vote for Black women, and men vote Democrat. But the reason whether or not, and maybe that is something we should talk about, but our social conservatism that is prevalent among Black people is still doesn't outweigh the racism of the Republican Party and why Black people still are not going to vote Republican. So to me, I think it's a more worthwhile conversation to, instead of to pretend like, to me, like the Black male Republican is a real threat to us. It's that we need to talk about why people are so dissatisfied about Joe Biden, or why we think there's voter apathy, whether we think that's fair, unfair, or contributing to the media, or what
Can
have
I
you.
jump in on that? Because I think that one of the things that's missing from the conversation about Black voters and Black voter apathy or Black voter sentiments is the fact that Black voters are targeted relentlessly with disinformation and misinformation. This goes all the way back to 2016. Even the Mueller report talked about how Russian bot farms have been targeting Black people. And they don't necessarily target Black people specifically on policy issues. They target Black people with things like saying Planned Parenthood is eugenics, or, Hillary stole money from Haiti, or whatever the situation may be. They really use racism as a wedge to make Black voters disaffected. And then when we talk about what the conversation about immigration, that's a conversation that simultaneously galvanizes the Republican base, but suppresses the Black voter base, because it feeds into that narrative that, people are getting something and Black people are not getting it. And so the reason why it's so hard for Democrats to make the kinds of gains that they should be getting, or to hold on to the ground that they have, is because they're losing not just the disinformation information war, but the actual information war. And it's not just a messaging thing. That's just what reality is according to the information that people are receiving.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, that's 1,000% true. There's not been a real investment from the Democratic Party in informing Black voters whatsoever, right? Because the expectation is, it's a funny thing, because it's like you damned if you do, damned if you don't. Black voters, like you said, overwhelmingly support the Democratic Party, right? And yet there's still this narrative, especially when it comes to Black men, like, oh, Black men are turning conservative, so on and so forth. And we don't have those same conversations about, like, rightful conversations about the Hispanic community, about the Asian community, about white women, so on and so forth, right? But it's all placed on Black men. And, then you expect us to come out, vote for you while blaming us when you don't win. And, when you have people in like the manosphere and stuff like that who are telling you, oh, divest from the Democratic Party, it's hard for like people like us to then say, oh, no, we shouldn't divest from the Democratic Party. You're like, well, they're blaming us for everything. They're also not invested in the community information-wise. Right. So it is difficult, because it's like you want us to do what you want us to do for you, but you also have no interest whatsoever in combating what actually ends up being a real narrative that you're not invested in us, right? Like it's not faux rhetoric. It's like real talk.
Yeah. And we're outnumbered. That's something I'm thinking about all the time, is like, and people don't realize it. It doesn't just come in the form of, like the way you said, they're not just targeting with directly like, oh, vote Donald Trump or this is the next thing. It's being weeded in through all this manosphere, all this kind of content. The fact that like when you look and you see the pictures of the White House with like Kamala and Joe with like the Shade Room people, Jason Lee and those people and blah, blah, blah. And then you think and you go look at what those platforms post. Those are actually really conservative platforms that post nothing but misinformation and spew. And what people don't realize is when you spend all year, spewing misinformation to people and feeding them this kind of like bigotry and this like right-wing dogma, even though you're not telling them, the Shade Room is not saying vote Donald Trump and saying all this throughout the year. By the time when you've done given them all, force-fed them all this conservatism, then you're shocked by election season when they hear all the Donald Trumps and they're like, haha, that's funny, that's so da-da-da-da-da, and they feel, and then what do we do when they, for so many different reasons, like beyond the fact that the right people don't realize, I think, people often talk about, from the left, we'll talk about Republicans like they're just good at winning like overnight, but they play the long game, right? These are people who've had think tanks and money placed and they work on stuff for 50 years. Republicans didn't they didn't let up on Roe. They were on that the whole time, right? And so they not only have this entire large infrastructure and they have the money there, but then you combine that with the algorithms and just like the kind of rage bait engagement culture we have now, we're outnumbered. I feel like how do we counteract back to that, to the manospheres. And then if all of our, like, people are not going to us for the news the way they're going. Unfortunately, they're going to the shade room and they're going to these outlets. And so what do we do?
You keep saying shade room, and you're gonna make me start calling all of them. Hollywood Unlocked, Baller Alert, just go down the list.
Spiritual
All
World.
of them.
Spiritual world. That don't
Every
do no
one
work.
of them. Here's the thing, though. I'm going to go even further. I don't speak for nobody else on the screen. I think they're getting paid for this. I think that there is a list that they get talking points from, because you're going to see these talking points come out on the same day at the same time. Remember, they recycled Donald Trump's platinum plan about 2 or 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden, I think it was Waka Flocka or one of them shared it, and then a whole list of black Negro rappers started sharing it. Like, we know y'all haven't paid attention this much to simultaneously share this platinum plan, but that just lets you know a little bit of money goes such a long way. And this will sound bad, but in the Negro community, they're giving these people chump change, and they're spreading $1 million propaganda that's impacting the black community in a way that we haven't really been able to measure yet.
Can I say, even if they aren't necessarily getting direct payment from some entity that is giving them talking points, the algorithm rewards that kind of content. So they're getting paid regardless, because they're going to get people that are like, I can't believe y'all posting this, and they're going to get people that are like, yeah, Donald Trump 2024, And so either way, there's a huge profit motive behind it, even if it's just simply posting it and saying, y'all debate,
What do you think about this?
It's a grift. In the grifters, we see how black grifters or black people who ride the fence but usually have conservative talking points, how we'll see them more in the algorithm. We'll see their stuff pushed more. And then we see them just go all out, Donald Trump is a better pick because, and then the rappers that come out, the random rappers, for why, I don't know, Sexy Red was asked about Donald Trump. I can take it back to, this was just a few months ago, right? And she was asked about Donald Trump. And the Shade Room made sure not to post that. And then we just saw that she was pregnant. But it was a very problematic interview where they were just like, who do you think is going to win? And because her base is like children, but young folks who can vote, right? And so she's saying, well, Donald Trump ain't got no problem with me. He's just funny. People just don't understand him. He put money in my pocket. Ain't no other president did that. He put money, and these people are saying that's true. He put money in my pocket. And as we discussed, Ben, on our show, Like It or Not, that $600 check that it was literally scraps, and he held it just so he can sign it and have his signature on it. You guys were nothing to him about that. And we fought for more, and he gave you the $600. And so that's not him putting money in your pocket. It's the people who worked hard for him to even give you $1 during that time. On top of that, he sees you so little that he goes to speak in front of a black conservative crowd, allegedly. And then he's literally selling off a sneaker. He's selling you off his criminal record. And he's just talking about the black faces that he sees in the audience. That's all. Literally. That's it. That's how low the bar is for black people.
But the thing about it is that makes me so frustrated. The bar is so low, and yet the Democrats can't seem to jump over it, right?
Come on, somebody.
Because the reality of it is that, like, all of us, I don't know everybody on here, but I do know for us to be here, we have a certain level of privilege, right? This is, we're pontificating on black politics, right? But I'm from the projects. I'm, and most of my family's still in the projects. Everybody got 2-3 jobs, so on and so forth. And when I'm going and talking to people from where I'm from, and whatever, about politics, they're like, oh, what has Biden done? It's hard for me to make an infrastructure bill sexy and shit. You know what I mean? That's just being real, right? And what they do see, though, is, even today, Biden eating ice cream, talking about there might be a ceasefire on Monday, right? And so it's hard for me to sell. It's hard for me to, I don't really want to be selling Biden, but it's hard for me to essentially sell anti-Trump, because people understand the way that he markets, right? Trump is a marketer, right? Trump is probably the greatest grifting marketing mind of since Goebbels in reality, right? And people don't get it. He taps into the social media type of mind, give you 140 characters, give you something, a sound bite. Joe Biden don't have, where's the sound bites? Where's it this? Where's it that? Do something. Give us something to run with, right? Platform the right people. Shit, not Biden, Trump and them even know, oh, we gonna go do this interview with Sexy Red. Let that shit get hot on TikTok, right? But Olay, I mean, who's doing that same thing with you? Has the Biden campaign set anything up so that you have something going viral? No.
They be on the shade room. I see they send
Yeah,
Kamala.
yeah.
They will send Kamala because she black-ish, and they'll send her right on into the shade room to do all the work so she can just talk about, just her raps and when she was pledging at Howard. That's what we get when we have. Let's talk real policies and what we're doing, not the next game that's going to happen. Let's talk about these real issues.
But also like conservatism is really sexy to a lot of people, right? It promises you patriarchy. It promises you money, getting rich, getting money, getting a good job. Trump's whole campaign is "Make America Great Again," right? He's painting a real conservative ideal, cis heteronormative families where a country doesn't have to worry about nothing. Everyone has money, and they sell that to people. And then culturally, like, what is the Democratic Party like selling? So like it makes it really hard for me as someone who's like very critical of both political parties. I'm like, I identify as like ultra leftist to see just the lack of attention given to where Black people are at, like culturally, politically, by any political party, and really making an earnest attempt. Like I think what Joe Biden does is like he goes to like the Black churches when it's time to like campaign, and I'm like, how are you speaking to like the young people out here? How are you speaking like? It's like he had, in my opinion, it's like he has no investment in terms of like reaching where we at culturally. But
And
the
I think
Republican parties are tapping like rappers and shit.
I guess I think the understated part of this is on what the Republicans are actually selling them on, right? Like, I don't think we have to, or I don't see myself as having to sell anybody, or sell Black people, let me say specifically. I don't feel like I have to sell Black people on the Democratic Party or sell them on Joe Biden, right? But there's a reason why Black people overwhelmingly, 90% vote, no matter what is happening, how we feel who the candidate is because the reality is Black people have always had to make pragmatic choices in dealing with the world that they're in, right? Like, everybody else has their seasons where they go through something that makes them realize the American government doesn't give a fuck about them or give a fuck about people, and Black people live in that constantly. So we don't usually are not the ones that are jumping up like, okay, I can't be a part of this because we were never bought in. It's not that we're bought into the Democrats. I think often what it is what I think the Republicans have a better time at is the Republicans represent a world that used to be, like, and the world that has been for most of the time, right? Like what people know. And like Republicans, there are a lot of things about how we grew up, the world we lived in, where people were just a lot more bigoted without it being called bigotry in a lot different ways. Whereas they're sexist, they're homophobic, they are, religious. People were a lot more intolerant in the days of before. And so Republicans are able to sell that in their talking heads throughout the year, right? Like it's not about election season, it's not about everything. It's the way that they're able. Think about it. They have the biggest platforms, the biggest comedians, the biggest influencers, the biggest content creators. Though the bag is there, right? Like the Candace Owens.
They got the money.
Exactly. Candace Owens started out on the left, right? Or and then that didn't work for her. And she quickly pivoted. They pivot there because that's where the money is. So I think for me, what I'm starting to wrestle with is not feeling like, okay, how do I sell? What are the Democrats doing wrong? Or because I already know that. People on the ground already know that. We know what the Democrats are doing wrong. We know what we have to try to put them on. We know what it is we're trying to make happen. I think what it becomes is, what are we not selling to the public well? Because a conversation I've been having with people recently, like I had this conversation, T.S. Madison said this to me. It was basically like, we smarty Black people are not communicating in a way that we are essentially boxing out, you know what I mean, a lot of Black people from our conversations. And I'm starting to wonder if that's like, if what we need to be trying to figure out is how the misinformation Black community that is the biggest online, that are biggest in these spaces that people are getting their information from, what are they doing? How are they packaging in their things? And what can we do to better, I guess? Because I think what it is it's not about selling them on the party, or the real issue is not about selling them on the Democrats. The Democrats are not progressive. The Democrats are not to the left. What we want is to change social consciousness in people and in the community, right? We want to shift and make everybody more progressive in general. And that requires us to be winning the discourse wars throughout the year that we don't win. Like when the Republicans come up with the culture wars and they make it cool to start attacking this and attacking that. And it's all the ways that they dominate pop culture discourse and they weaponize all that. And that is what bleeds into by the time the election. So I'm like, what are we not doing is what I guess I'm wrestling with.
I feel like for first of all, they're not doing much for the Black community when it comes. They just literally do the bare minimum, and it's so sad that we have to ask the question about what are we not doing, because the bar is damn so low. Like we were just discussing, he's flashing sneakers to people, and there are actually people who are wearing them. And there is a discourse online where they're like, you know what, y'all don't really see what he's trying to do. Well, they really will try to, and then those things go viral. You know why? Because those social media pages that give the misinformation, they like those viral moments, and they will push that. They will push those. Look what Donald Trump said. Look what Donald Trump is doing, and we will miss those moments of here's what Biden said, or here's what this local leader said, or here's what this. We will miss all of those moments, or here's what is happening with police. All of these things are missed moments, but they will, anything that Donald Trump comes out and said, because it is entertainment, all of those social media sites do. But is that what we need to be doing? Because I have seen the White House on TikTok and what's her name, Kamala, doing the little dances and stuff, and they go viral. But I don't know what else we need to be doing, except it's like it's hard because the bar is that low. I don't know how to get in. You're right about how do we get into people's mind? I know back 4 years ago, was it like maybe 2021 or what? 2022, when the elections were happening, state senators, all of that good stuff. Was it 2020? It's been so long, pandemic years. But I remember when we had Cliff Albright on our show many times, local representatives here out of Georgia on the show. And they were, for a while, on the ground, making sure that photo suppression wasn't happening, because a lot of people were being attacked for living at the same address of a business. They were making sure that people were understanding the change of rules that were happening, the attacks that were happening at the poll place. No matter, they were doing the work. They were on the ground, and they're still doing it now. But we don't hear much about that. When it's fancy, when it was good, like a few years ago, when it was popular to be pictured outside, rallying and the photo ops, that was cute. But now it's like Trump is funny, and that's why he gonna get my vote.
Can I just jump in? Because I think that, number one, I've conceded that we're not going to get every vote. Like, half the country doesn't vote, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the margins, the people that are more passive, that are not super engaged. The engaged people are going to vote. That's not necessarily the people that we have to worry about. Now, we can activate them to be the messengers to help get those people that aren't as engaged. So that's where our power lies in activating those that are already engaged to go further, and then hopefully swaying people on the margins that don't really know which way to go, don't really know what to think, don't think that this impacts them. I think if we're talking about receipts, if we're talking about accomplishments, I think our job is easier, aside from, of course, the whole Israel-Gaza thing, which is a disaster. It's unconscionable and indefensible. But I think in terms of having tangibles, I don't know, that's the buzzword, having tangibles to go back to the Black community and say, listen, this administration has actually been deliberate in targeting policies that specifically impact our community, like the PAVE plan, which was about eliminating home ownership appraisal bias, like what was happening with the bomb threats at HBCUs, giving them grants, like what's happened. Unprecedented attention has been put to Black maternal mortality because of Vice President Kamala Harris. And we can go on down the line, a number of things that they've done really with that focus on the Black community. Even though the student loan debt stuff got overturned by the Supreme Court, there was a strategy that they had to make Black people disproportionately benefit from that by using the whole Pell Grant criteria, so that Black people disproportionately get double the cancellation. And so we're not in a position where they ain't done nothing. We can't tell nobody what's happened. Diabetes being $35 insulin is something that disproportionately impacts our community. We do have some specifics to go back with, but the reality is that we're not going to win the algorithm war. We don't have the funding. We don't have the backing of the Democratic Party in the same way as you all pointed out, Candace Owens or Charlie Kirk, who at 18 years old got a multi-million-dollar check to start up this bullshit, university or whatever. The Democrats aren't strategic that way. So we have to organically do that. And the way we do that is by cumulative credibility. Maybe all of our videos don't go viral, but I know having a radio show that's a call-in show, over time, you move the needle. You're not going to move it to win an election, but you're going to move it enough to where it's going to have an impact on a cumulative basis with enough people. And that's the best that we can do until we get some real money behind us.
No,
So can I ask a question? Because I think I'm hearing two different things right now, and I just want to make sure I'm clarified in my own head. Because what my interest in is not, I mean, sure, we got to like vote for Biden, so on and so forth, because you don't really have a choice. It is what it is. My interest is in moving people left, right, in a country that I feel like has gone further right in the last 8 years, even more right than when Obama was president, which is wild. But I feel
Those
like
are
if
the
we're
good
talking about,
days.
because we know the black community, for the most part, is going to go out and vote for the Democratic Party. They're going to go out and vote for Biden, right? My interest is looking at 2020. How do I make sure that a Biden doesn't happen again? That's my actual personal interest, right? Because I feel like a lot of people on here were surrogates for Bernie, were surrogates for Warren, were surrogates for different people, so on and so forth, whatever. And ultimately, whoever you were surrogate for, whoever you were supporting, you got Biden at the end of the day, right? Like, and when we're talking about people on the fringes, I don't think, just being really honest, right? When I'm talking to friends that I grew up with or whatever, nobody wants to hear about nothing but Gaza. Nobody, like right now, like nobody wants to hear anything about any of the policy. And I'm being really honest, right? I'm not if I'm the other day I was playing ball and I'm like, yo, everybody's like, yo, we not on that voting shit this year. Fuck Trump. I mean, fuck Biden. That's literally everybody, right? And
Yeah.
so I do think you actually do really need more, right? Not necessarily in the way of policy, but in the way I don't know what it
Yeah, come
is,
back.
Cut
but
that
you
brother
need
off in
more.
the.
Yeah, like to add, we got to be honest with black people about like what they've seen and what has transpired going all the way back to like 2016, right? Like and to like for me to move people left, that takes grassroots organization. It takes literally like just the bare bones of like knocking on doors and getting in contact with people. It takes online conversations like this, but it also takes something to fundamentally change about black people's lives and the politics that they encounter. We've seen the Democrat Party say no to free healthcare. We've seen them say no to free college and universities. And so, like, we're often in this moment where what Biden or any of the Democrat politicians do is kind of like from a top down effect and not from a bottom up effect, in which Black people are ideating our own policy, ideating our own agendas, and implementing them and seeing them and watching them getting passed. Like, we haven't substantially seen that, which is why more people are disinvested and backing away and have this apathy. And so, like, how do we solve, that friction?
One quick thing, man, y'all, like this is the core conversation, right? Because y'all make me think about two fundamental structural problems that we have. To answer your question, Olay, one of the reasons we don't have the money, it's not the money is there, right? But the money is on the side of capital. And the more they know deep in their hearts that black folks have a critical analysis, we have a class critique, we understand the economics of this thing, they have no interest in actually pouring money into us, not just because we're black, but because we have a class critique. But now you dig in a little deeper, though. I look at the Democratic Party and I ask myself the same questions you all are asking yourself. Why aren't they putting money into it, into black media like they should, like they need to, like they need us to show up and vote for them? Like, why aren't they doing that? And I think there's a structural problem there, too, because do you really think that the white folks in this country, no matter what party, are actually interested in black power being able to organize at a level where we aren't dependent on them to go and reach our black folks? They couldn't really have a black infrastructure here in the United States of America that could operate autonomously separate from the political power structure right now. I think those are two structural impediments for us.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Something I think about with the sides is it's a lot easier for the right to mobilize because they're not in it for the legitimate reasons, right? A lot of the people on the right and their spokespeople, their politicians don't even believe the shit that they're saying. They don't live their lives in accordance with that. They have a united mission. They're there for like a particular agenda, however you want to characterizing it, advancing whiteness, capitalism, the status quo, however have you. That's what the agenda is. So they can all get on
Yeah.
board with that. They don't need to like all the rest of us. We have like true things we're passionate about. We see it this way. We believe these systems, and we have disagreements, ways, and approaches that we want, and that creates. You can't get on one accord if you genuinely have different accords. So I think that makes it. I think that makes it a lot more difficult for us on this end, right? Like,
that's a word, Olay. That'll preach right there. You can't get on one accord if you genuinely all have different accords.
But that's a good point.
But you're right.
Yeah, every time we get into the space, at any time I even look for conversations that are happening online from people in the media who are having these conversations, you know, on YouTube, a lot of content creators. It's like everybody wants to, like when it's even talking about this particular thing, some people are not helping, in my opinion, with just the, you know what, Biden ain't good. You know, I could feel that way too, because, and these same people, these Black content creators who speak about politics, mostly they'll say, you know, we understand, and I've said this, but I've made sure that, hey, but voting is serious. People have literally fought for us to be able to do this. Like you were saying, Reese, like people can't always just stick on Biden and Gaza. I'm frustrated about that too. Biden's stance on it, the blood on his hands, how he just been nonchalant about it. Just, you know, how they're partnering with Israel. I'm with everybody on that. But we can't just say, hold your vote. You know, before P. Diddy was canceled, remember back in the day, it was vote or die. That same man that said vote or die turned around, spent the block, and told people to hold their vote. So this is why I'm saying we can't do that though, because our vote is very important. And for a time, people were dying. People couldn't do it. Black folks couldn't vote. They couldn't do it. And they didn't know that at this time. They knew at some time, maybe not in their lifetime, one day we'll be able to vote. So the easiest thing is, like, we can't just be like, oh, I ain't gonna vote because where Biden stand. There are so many other reasons for you to be able to vote. And I think that that's the thing that we need to figure out how to get into people. But when a lot of people who are going viral are the ones with these simple ass talking points, where it's just like, you know, don't vote, but go hold your vote. Our votes are important. Just hold it because we not effing with Biden. That's not enough.
But you know, it's also rough to what Fred was saying earlier about how people feel right now on Palestine. They don't want to hear shit. Sometimes, like, you can make, I have tried, trust me, I've made every kind of argument. Like, I put the argument in short form, long form, tried it all the ways on why, you know, voting is still this and why Biden is still the choice or whatever over Trump. The way people see it is, no matter what you say, I could explain to people all the reasoning. This is a response I've seen a lot. They will be like, oh, that's good, that's cool, that's all very well and cool, Olay, that might be right, but like, you shouldn't have to do lip service. The Democrats should be doing it. The Democrats aren't doing this or what. Like, they have this attitude, and what I've noticed consistently is, like, people keep thinking they're going to spite the Democrats, and it's like the cut off your nose to spite your face shit. I'm like, who do you think you're hurting? The Democrat? Like, I understand, and don't get me wrong, I understand. I'm not blowing down on anybody who feels like they can't vote because of Palestine and this and the next thing. But just as far as you making the argument, people don't even have the energy they don't even want to hear from you on it. Like, even if you say you respect what they're doing, if you explain why you think this, and the next thing, like I've explained, for me, it's not about a lesser of two evils thing. It's a who's the weakest adversary. Like, what I think people fail to understand is that no, I don't believe that the Democrats or any political party or who are the progressive champions of the world or who are moving us left or anything like that, or that the Democrats do anything because they agree with us on the left. No, I recognize they have the same capital interests and all these different things, but the Democrats' voter base, that's who, it's the organizers on the ground. It's the people who vote that are who are creating and pushing the bills and all the progressive change and the bail reform and all these different things. And they are not able to make those things happen under Republican administrations. And those are the things that I'm thinking about. But you say that and I'm immediately like chopped off at the head. But people are like, but genocide. And even if you point out, I'm like, America's an imperialist nation. Yes, I agree. This is a genocide. This is absolutely wrong. I made a whole doc about it. I am 100% alignment with that. But America is an imperialist nation. That this was what they were always going to do. They've always aided Israel. This is not the first people that they are financially funding the genocide of. It's not even now. Even when you see people be like, oh, until I get a ceasefire, I can't vote for Biden. I'm like, Biden has been helping. The United States government has been aiding the killing of people all across this world from time and currently in the Congo and all kind of places that you don't know. And again, if it wasn't Biden, if it's not, Donald Trump is on record right now. He's up telling you exactly how much worse he would be. He's criticizing Biden for being too soft on the issue, you know? So I'm like, and then when you say that, people go, oh, but you're saying, but Trump. That's a Democrat's whole argument. And it's like, this isn't about me trying to be a cheerleader for the Democrat. I'm just telling you realistically, like, look, that's realistically who will be president if not Joe Biden. So I don't know how you don't want me to contend with that reality. So I just don't know what to do at this point.
I've said, listen, the
organized Black
Republicans
power.
are.
Oh, go ahead.
A Republican administration means everything you're getting with Israel and Gaza right now, plus war with Iran. So do you want nuclear war or not? Like, you know, but the reality is every voter is not a gettable vote. And you can say respect and move on to the next group of people. Like I have 100%. If you want to vote your conscience and you say, I'm not going with Biden because of Israel, Gaza, respect. Let me go talk. Maybe I can get the sexy red group people who said Trump gave me a stimmy. Maybe I can help convert some of those people. Like there are 80 million people out there who did not vote in the 2020 election. That's a big ass pool of people that we can hopefully tap into. And it's not going to be a viral video. Even those videos that go viral, look at those accounts that go viral. They have 1 million likes and 2,000 people follow them. You know, it's a flash in the pan moment. It's that cumulative credibility that's going to move the needle. Not this particular video, not this thing that was trending, not something that captured people who already don't vote and they on like rah, yeah, we not voting train. It's the people that vote and it's the people that we can get on the fringes to come with us. That really, anything else is a distraction. And if people want their part, those non-voters or those people who have particular interests, the onus is on them to put the pressure on these politicians to get their agenda enacted. And for the rest of us, we can do what we can do to try to get the people that are already engaged or the people who maybe we can win. I think we can win some of the sexy red Trump gave me a stimmy people. Maybe we can. That's an easier get for me at this point than other groups. So that's kind of where I feel like one of the things that this is powerful at is actually making us feel a little bit more like helpless, making us feel a little bit more like, what's the point? You know, there's so many people that feel this way. We have to stay focused on the people that are gettable. Whoever else ain't gettable, hey, that's cool, fine, whatever. See you later, bye. Have a nice life, good luck.
But I think I don't disagree with that, but I think we have to also look at the numbers, right? So the reality of it is that while Joe Biden had the most votes in history, Trump had the second most votes in history. And what it took for Biden to have those votes was people coming from the fringes, not just on the left and people who are, you know, self-proclaimed progressive, but also Republicans coming over as well to get Biden over the hump, right? You look at places like Michigan, you know, where you kind of can't, you know, for especially, you know, in places where have people out of NOI and so on and so forth. You can't just say, oh, forget y'all because it's a swing state. You know, the reality of it is that you really actually do need those people because that's going to come down to a few thousand folks. And again, I don't think that it's a matter of being like, oh, woe is us. It's impossible. I think we have to have honest, real conversations to figure out solutions because we did fear in 2020, right? We did. Look, we got to go out because, you know, Trump is this and Biden is that, but he's not Trump. So the same things that like the expectation of us in 2024 is what happened in 2020, right? And so I think what a lot of people have, you know, outside of even Gaza is like, hey, you came to me in 2020, you said the same things, I rocked with you. And, you know, even in education, right? As an author, a lot of and they're getting frustrated with Biden, right? A lot of them are really frustrated with Biden and not knowing, like, hey, I don't know if I need to vote because da. But that's how people are feeling. That's how some people are feeling. It's not like, every educator's feeling this way. But even if you have 2 out of 1,000, that's who actually matters in a tight ass election.
So I guess I have a special cocktail of perspective on this because I'm an immigrant. And when I say immigrant, I mean in the status way, right? Because like when you say that, people think I mean your parents came as the immigrant and no, I'm the immigrant right now, right? So at the mercy of USCIS. People always, they do this thing. I see this a lot. They're always like, oh, you know, we did this in 2016. Y'all did this in 2016. Like, as though like we cried wolf and the wolf wasn't real. The wolf was fucking real. And I think sometimes what I have a problem with is, and this has always been my issue. Like, I've been in America now since I was 14. I'm 30 now, and I can't vote. You know, I'm a lawyer, I'm politically involved, all that, but I can't vote. And I'm always at the mercy of what Americans do with that election, right? And with the 2016 election, immigration was catastrophic. As an immigrant, I'm telling you what I felt like going through the immigration system. Like, most of my friends from the Bahamas, most of the people that I knew that were international students are back where they came from. You know, I barely, by the skin of my teeth, got a visa. So I'm like, when people fail, Americans sometimes forget that this is a country that advertises itself as a melting pot to the rest of the world. And it has a significant amount of people that live in this country with real lives that are affected that cannot have a say in the system. So very often,
100%.
people are not allowed to say shit, so you don't hear from them. They're at the mercy of the immigration system and all of this. So then, like, Americans who have the ability to like hold hands and make decisions based on their conscience and their morals and all of this different stuff and virtues, and I understand that, but they'll be like, you know, they'll act like it doesn't matter, or the wolf was scary. It's like, yo, the wolf was so real. The people it ate up, you don't know about, you don't hear about. You're not hearing about from the immigrants in those stories who live that. And I'm not saying that the Democrats are good on immigration. I want to be clear. They're all fucking bad on immigration. They're all bad on immigration. But in 15 years of being in this country, I've never been almost out of this country until Donald Trump was there. That's the first time I've been going to embassy all my life. I was getting denials when like true fear was felt in the room. Like, when I think about the fact that I'm still in the immigration system, and if Donald Trump becomes president again, I'm like, my chances, you know, by the time I get a decision on a visa is, you know, it looks different. So sometimes I want to think about them when people feel like, oh, we can't do the 2016 again. It's like, it's not, I don't feel like, it's like people think it's a ploy. It's not a ploy. I'm trying to tell you that because it's true. Unfortunately, like, it's true. You know, I don't know.
That's what they need to be invested in. What you just said is not going viral, right?
Yeah.
That's the entire, that's the bar. That's the bar. What you just said, right? If that's it right there. But that's the frustrating part. You have that on TikTok, put $10,000 behind it. You might have swung a few people on the fringes because they're like, yo, yeah, I'm not gonna front my, you know, this and that third, my, you know, yeah, that's, but they're not doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
And it sucks that we have to worry about it going viral, but that's the world we live in right now, right? That's how people are getting their information very quickly. Lots of misinformation going out very, very quickly. But these conversations are super important. Like I said, Reese was saying, like, if we just focus, and you said too, Olay, if we really just focus, because I know it's frustrating us too. It's frustrating us having to sit at the damn kitchen table, and your daddy, who's an immigrant, they done told his behind that Trump is better, and he's thinking it's good. And I'm like, Dad, like you said, let's run it back to 2016, right? When the same people that were your friends at work were telling you to go back to your country. Let's go back and have that conversation. But also, all of these different things, like, remember, if we go back and we go into remembrance, and we go back to 2016, and we say about how he talked to immigrants, how he treated immigrants, how he was shooting down DACA, anything that was going, he was shooting it down. And a lot of immigrants felt it, like you said, Olay. And then I never felt so Black in my life. Like, I never felt like I realized from the moment I went into work where it's predominantly white. I live in a predominantly white city now. But when he became president, the church I was at, we was praying at the moment. And they were like, this is just God's will. The accent I gave you, yes, they were white pastors. This is just God's will. And, you know, and I think that God is just going to make sure that he touches. I don't give a damn, lady. I don't want to do this. I'm leaving. I went to work the next day. What I saw were people just rooting and saying, oh my gosh, like all white men, they're saying, you know, oh my gosh, Trump is president. And I'm just like, I'm feeling so singled out. I went to the bathroom. There was a Hispanic girl crying in there because they were saying jokes to her in her tech office where they were telling her, like, you probably got to go back to your country, Maria, like little jokes like that, and getting away with it. And she was in the bathroom crying. Then we started to see people walking out in the streets with tiki torches that they got from Walmart in the name of Trump, because I think they were trying to take monuments down. Then we heard about both sides of situations, how he was both siding things instead of calling a thing a thing. So much happened. People's health care was trash just because he gave you some extra dollars on your tax. Meanwhile, your child can't get no health care. You can't didn't get no health care. Like, did you get a job? Wasn't it a struggle for you? So many things were happening during that time. And that's where the correct information is, the true information is. And if we're able to deliver that, I know it might be two people, but if it just, how Risa Tisa was saying online, if it just touches one person, if it just touch one person.
But can I also
enough.
say, I think I would say this, I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
I feel a responsibility to not just give voice to people's frustration, but to be a thought leader in terms of putting their frustration in context and trying to offer solutions and prescriptions. It's not enough to just say, Black people feel this way, Black people da-da-da-da. We have to talk to Black people and inform them. Okay, I respect that, I honor that, I hold space for that, but you have to understand and run down the list. I will dot your ass in a second, you know? But I think that what a lot of people are looking for, and I'll talk about Black people, is this big shoe to drop. The shoe is dropping every freaking day. I mean, if we look at what's happening, as we're three women sitting on this panel, we are not national citizens anymore because we do not have you're immigrant, but I'm saying we're the two of us are not American citizens because our bodily autonomy depends on the location of where we're placed at that given moment. We cannot move freely. If you want to have an abortion and you want to go to this state, your ass can be hunted down from the state that you came from. That's not national citizenship anymore. And so the citizenship is already out the window for women, right? And then depending on which state you are, when you have a state in Florida where Ron DeSantis removed a democratically elected state's attorney from her position, that's no longer a democracy. Where he held positions open, seats open for hundreds of thousands of Black voters, and he did it for months. That's not a democracy. So everywhere around the country where Republicans, be clear, are in power, our citizenship is already under assault. And so whatever people are looking for, a big January 6th moment, that should have been enough, but it's happening daily, and we need to wake the hell up about it. This isn't a cry wolf situation. This isn't, well, let's talk about 2016, 2020. It's literally happening. IVF in Alabama. It's literally happening where Republicans are racking up wins, and the media is focusing on Biden being damn old, which he was old in 2020. And, you know, a lot of Black people that are being platformed are focused on whatever policy they think that Biden should have gotten that did it.
Or their personal gripe. I feel like there's I see from a lot of commentators, it feels like they have their own, like it feels like a personal animus towards, you're mad at the party. And not an unbiased, and I mean an unfair personal animus, but that personal animus is like motivating what they're telling people to do. I'm wondering if like what we need to do is start telling people, or maybe it's not telling people what they can do, or explaining to people what people are already doing on the grounds places, because you'll say that, I know how this is. I literally know how people respond to everything online. Now you'll say that, Reese, and someone will be like, and what have the Democrats done? If the Democrats aren't, y'all say the Republicans are fascist, but the Democrats aren't fighting fascism. That's what they'll say. But I'm like, what actually happens, how these things work is first of all, there's countless legislation. People say that, but they're not actually that involved with what's happening locally or how it's happening, who the council members are, what laws are being passed, or any of that stuff. So, but what happens is there are groups, there are nonprofits, there are organizers, there are activists, there are people on the ground who are quite literally pushing legislation, lobbying for different things, and they are making that happen. And then they find politicians who they can get an ear to, they can explain to, who they can get to sign on to it. Like when I think of like the Unlock the Box people in California who's pushing the End Solitary Confinement Act, and they got Cory Bush to sponsor that, or that's what's happening. And so what I try to explain to people, it's not about what the Democrats do or any politician does. The politicians do not do the change. They're not the ones who push these progressive things that happen. It's actual people. But those people need an air they can at least get through to. But the Republicans are a brick wall. They cannot get a Republican to sponsor, their End Solitary Confinement Act. It's not going to happen. So that, I think, is what I'm wondering if now we got to start, maybe widening the scope for people, understanding how it really works, is then they think nothing else has happened. They think if they see the picture as Democrats, issue, and politician. And so if they don't see the politician doing something, they assume nothing is being done, or that politician serves no purpose, or the party. So I'm wondering that.
Yeah, Democrats don't get, Democrats don't get penalized. Republicans don't get penalized for any policy. Maybe except for abortion, maybe a little bit. But when things don't happen, it's both sides. When Republicans do crazy stuff, like you said, Democrats don't didn't magically stop them. So that's the benefit of being a Republican, unfortunately, for us.
Right.
One of the things with wow, what Reese just said also, the Democrats just seem to me, you don't get to that level of success and that level of organizing. You don't get a national party and not be aware of some of these things we're talking about. I say that to say, if the Democrats don't understand the nuances that we're discussing on this show, they don't need to be in power. And we need people to, and I'm not talking about the party. I'm not talking about Trump and Biden. I'm talking about the infrastructure. I'm talking about people who are moving and shaking inside the party who can help make these decisions. Because for them to miss some of the things that we're saying on here, it's like, it's politics 101. And I don't think it's unintentional. I think it's very intentional that they don't communicate to the Black community the way they need to because they can't afford to, which is why I suggest I'm not promoting any Democrats. I'm promoting Black organizing, Black power. Yeah. We know how many Black people going to vote for the Democrats at 90% clip. We're organizing Blackness for Black things, for Black issues, so that we can communicate with ourselves outside of the Democratic Party, outside of the Republican Party. So if people want to know how we doing it for 2024, for me and my house, we voting Black. we organizing Black, and we spending our time in the Black community. And if they happen to vote 90% for the Democratic Party, well, then that's kind of what we need.
Yeah, in my opinion, like they don't want it. They don't want it bad enough. We know Black folks are going like 90%. We've been doing that forever. You know, it was the landmark legislation that got us kind of like locked in with the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, that, you know, led Black people to be Democrats. They don't want it bad enough. I don't see them actively going out in white communities doing like, or trying to swing voters in their direction. I think we're in a period of time where it does actually like calls for like more like landmark legislation to come about so that we aren't stuck in this cycle of lesser evils every election. So like the story Olay just shared in regards to her status, right? How are the Democrats thinking about enfranchising more voters, incarcerated people, immigrants? Like these are ways you can easily like get your numbers up.
But that's the problem. But here's my thing. Why I keep saying, to me, the war is actually not on the politicians. It's on the social consciousness and moving people left. Because we lose these discourse wars all the time. If a Democrat right now, let's say a Democrat did propose trying to get more status for immigrants or immigrants, even Black immigrants, how often I see the discourse, then it will be what Reese said. The immigrants trying to look how they trying to serve for the immigrants and they don't do for us. Because what white supremacy does, what the Republicans have done, what the right has done, is they make marginalized groups attack each other instead of the source, right? Instead of you looking at what this white supremacist capitalist system is, you out here trying to fight with another group that isn't getting anything. So that's what'll happen is like, that's what I'm saying is like, there's a lot of consent for a lot of regressive things that the right wants to see happen that would prevent the left from doing it. Because it's not just like Democrats don't just get criticized for not doing anything or even what they actively do. They get criticized because people see them as on the side of this new progressive world that they don't like, that they, you know what I mean? And so that's why I think it's more important for us to win, I guess, to figure out how we change how people are seeing some of these things, how we counteract a lot of these narratives. And it can be really hard. I guess is my original frustrating part is like, it's hard to beat it when they're organized on the other side to make sure drown you out in the algorithm and all of this, especially when what I realize is I swear I can make this make sense. I have an autoimmune disorder I recently found out about, and everybody else who has the disorder in the Reddit refuses to accept that it's an autoimmune disorder and they need to be on a diet, right? And it's because you don't want to accept that because you want to eat the way that you have always been eating, right? Like they have a hard time even accepting that it could be true that foods are affecting the way the disorder feels, because it's like, I've been eating this way all my whole life and it wasn't a problem. So how could that be it now? So so if you give them this information that, it doesn't matter, they're going to eat that up because they want it to not matter. So I feel like that's a lot of what we see there is people don't like, a lot of people, the status quo is what they've known. They are more predisposed to having an aversion to anything that feels like change. And that's what progressive thought is, right? Like that's not where we're at. So everything, but even if the Democrats were doing that, it would be getting shot down because we spent all year thinking that, it's just diaspora wars. It's just this. It's just, you know what I mean? All these things that you can't, to me, that's not a coincidence. If you go look, I did this one time, go type in ADOS on Twitter, on Twitter, and click on most of those accounts and look at who they're following. These are a bunch of bots following a bunch of Republicans and white supremacists and stuff, but that's who's infiltrating our communities, discussions, and then people think that's normal and they think it's just a social media discourse, but people are going off into the world, into the society, and feeling this way, and then they vote that way and they oppose things that way. So that's why I think, to me, the problem is when it's too late. I don't have a problem with the issue. I think you end up with Biden's when everyone complains you're in the middle of election season. Now you're mad about the candidates, and now you want to suggest people to the country for the first time who they've never heard about, who they weren't doing shit during the 4 years, or these issues, you were letting these discourses go off, you were contributing, you were watching this shit, you were okay with the viral nonsense, you were watching all these right-wing fools on their streaming sites, you weren't thinking there's anything related as to why academics is on Rumble and all this shit, and then you're losing the election conversation. So that's why I think it's the larger discourses. Like, to Frederick's original, I feel like my obligation is to move people more left, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, how I package that, even within the recognition that the odds are stacked against us. But to what Reese's saying is, you don't move. For us, we can't expect to rely on viral moments. We have to expect on being able to move the needle, slowly and consistently, and by talking to people. And so, I guess just trying to figure out the best way for us to do that.
Can I also add one thing?
Isn't it funny that there's no merit? Go ahead. No, I was going to say, it's just I'm listening to you synthesize everything that's happened in the last hour of this call. It just brilliantly synthesized it. And it's like, it's so frustrating that this country isn't really a meritocracy, because we wouldn't even be having this conversation, because I haven't met a single conservative commentator that can hold a fan to the least on the left. But that's the entire point, right? And I think that plays into your question of whether or not we have to change the way we transmit this brilliance to them. But I just had to pause, because what you did was just brilliant. But we do that kind of brilliance in our content all damn day, every day.
Yeah, I just want to throw something out there, though. Part of the problem is that people overestimate how much power Democrats have. Like, we've been having a whole conversation about what Democrats can do, what good Democrats can do, but only 17 states have a Democratic trifecta right now. That's a third of the states in this country. And so a lot of the people, and Black people, are heavily concentrated in states that actually have Republican trifectas. So a part of the problem is that civics knowledge that we have to try to correct with our people, because they're blaming Biden, and you sitting up there in Kay Ivey State or Tate Reeves State, who's having Confederate Heritage Month, or, Louisiana, they just elected a governor, mostly through inaction and not voting, that is trying to do all kind of heinous things with the criminal justice system. And so part of what we can help do, I think, is explain to people where the power is, who you should really be mad at, and then how you get those people that you're really mad at out of power, as opposed to, like you said earlier, cutting off your nose to spite your face. You thinking that you're sticking it to the Democrats. They weren't in power to begin with. So how are you really moving the needle with them? So I think that people overestimate, because the Democrats have had the White House for much of the past 2 decades, how much power is actually concentrated with Democrats and Democrats alone.
I hadn't thought about that.
I think again, you're right. I also think that two things can be true, because we're talking about moving people left, right? But we have to also understand that the Democrats, overwhelmingly, the Democratic establishment is not really left, right? And so what also happens is, as you're moving people further left, people are becoming disillusioned with, okay, well, I'm supporting Cori Bush. Look how they just did Cori Bush, right? And things like that happen. So we have to have honest conversations that, again, I don't think that people are not civically aware. I actually think more people are becoming civically aware than ever in history, in my personal opinion. I think that especially young people, thanks to, following certain people on TikTok and things like that, and following people who are here and learning from everybody who's here on this call right now. But we can't blame people for doing the work and not really call out that a lot of the Democratic establishment actively counteracts the work in real time, right? It's hard to go into a Black community as one of us, speak to, the brothers, the sisters, so on and so forth, and then ultimately have a policy that comes out. Like, I was at a ceremony that was honoring the late brother Malcolm X recently, and they were going to honor I forget his name. He's a politician here in New York City. We're about to honor him. You'll know who I'm talking about, but I gotta remember.
I hope not Adams.
No, hell no. He's like, I think he's like the borough president of the Bronx
Olay.
or something like that. I forget his name. Something Latino, whatever. And they couldn't even honor. He's a Democrat. They couldn't even honor him because he's in support of something around Rikers, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's a Democrat. So then everybody in the room is like, oh, well, I'm not rocking with him next time. But then what happens if the next time it's some Republican who is going against him, right? So we have to have the real conversations about the work is happening. We're moving people left. And also, Democrats are not to blame for everything. And also, sometimes they are. We have to have a real dynamic conversation with people, you know?
Yeah, I think too, like we really have to be honest. We have to be real
Honest.
about knowing that whoever we were having this conversation, Ben. Sometimes I go to church, and I don't like what the pastor said. I don't really care for it. I don't like it. I don't want to hear it. I'm going home. That doesn't mean I'm not going to come back next Sunday. I like my church. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So at the end of the day, there's leaders who are in place right now, Democratic leaders who aren't doing their job. They're not supposed to be there. Does that mean that we're just gonna be like, I'm not siding with them because this one person is doing this thing? They're not gonna do everything that you want to do. I don't like a lot of things that Biden has done. Does that mean that he hasn't done great things? No, but at the same time, let's keep on voting closer to where we can make some changes. If you vote towards, and then you're going to sit there and have that argument with people. Meanwhile, you're going to be like, that's why I really rock with Trump. When he's done way more things. He's a criminal, right? He's done way more things to cause division, but yet you're just like stuck on the stimmy. But you won't rock with these Dems because that one little thing that you were like, I can't. That's why I don't like Democrats. But if we have these platforms and we have these conversations and they are available somewhere in the algorithm atmosphere for somebody to fall on, maybe they can be educated by this these types of videos, or sit down and actually have these conversations, understand how they can have these conversations in their communities. We can't give up. That's just where it's at. It's hard. It really is. Sometimes I just want to go to sleep and just not be bothered with anything. But I don't have kids yet. So what does that look like for me if I don't vote for somebody in this particular community that I live in that's predominantly white, where I have had run-ins with police officers, where they have looked at me crazy when I go into stores, where jobs won't take me because of when they find out that I'm Black? Like, who am I voting for here? If I want to stay here in this area and I have kids in the next 5 years, what does insurance look like for them? Like, know who you're voting for, know what your community is. Don't just say I'm not gonna vote. So if we all collectively, and this is where the problem is, we be on 10 different pages, but when it comes to this one thing, when it comes to voting, I think if we all collectively stick in that same place and have that same message, I think that's where the power comes from. That's where the power comes
Can I throw one number out there? Just one number? To Rebecca's point about, the party isn't any individual. There are 519,682 elected officials in this country of all stripes. Yeah. 96% of those people are local elected officials. 3.6% are state and 0.1% are federal. You could come up with an antidote for even 100 Democrats that suck, but it's 100 out of 519,000. And so I just want us to keep in perspective, like I said, 17 Democratic trifectas, 519,000 elected officials. That's not even counting appointees and all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot of power that's dispersed in this country, and yet it seems like there isn't that kind of context in the critiques that we sometimes lobby and sometimes the critiques that we're even trying to challenge.
You need to send that clip to the DNC. That clip right there too. So you just need to clip all this away and send it all to the DNC. That just clip all that.
No, you're absolutely right. I've been thinking about this. I think we have to interrogate the why things are happening, right? Like sometimes, like, I had and when I was in law school, I went to a prosecutor mill and I became a public defender. But most everybody I knew became a prosecutor. And some of those people, or even most of those people in my heart, don't have not everybody who's a villain in the story, they are a villain, but they didn't wake up and think they were a villain. Like I had a friend named Naresh in law school who would explain to me why he wanted to be a prosecutor, and he would have the same answer for why I want to be a public defender up until a point. We'd be saying the same thing until it steers off, and then what you have to interrogate is the why it steers off. Like, what do you think about the world? How do you perceive the world that makes you think that that's the answer? And sometimes there are a lot of people, and even a lot of politicians, who are working against different views on the world, the way that they see the world, that makes them operate differently. Like I was interviewing someone about Cop City just before this, where Cop City, we have nothing but Black Democrats in office, right? And this is happening. But it isn't the same. I think why the why is important is when you look at this and you go, well, why? How does this place that's this like black metropolis decide I'm going to have this major fucking Cop City, right? And it's when she kind of, I was able to put the lens back. When you think about it, it's like, all right, you have this massively Black city where they feel this idea of Black capitalism, Black Hollywood, right? Like this myth of Black excellence, Black capitalism, right? Of feeling like, oh, this is how we, this is how we make ourselves respected as this like Black Mecca, right? We prove to the white people in this that we're going to have all these police, that this is safe, that we have a control, we have a handle on all these Negroes, that you're not going to see the kind of uprising you saw after Rayshard Brooks in 2020 and how she put it. And I'm like, I could see how Black people in a political system like that, where they've been raised in a world to believe in Black capitalism, like you get from a lot of our pop culture icons, from the Jay-Z's, from the this that's being fed to us, how they see what they're doing as the right thing, even though we obviously see like you are helping create mass incarceration in a prison industrial complex for your people. You are trying to attack bail. This is a fascist state and all this, but you could see how in a world where you see yourself as uplifting the Black community by attracting wealth to it, or or respectability, politics, and approval. And that's why I think what it ultimately comes down to is teaching people is how else we shift the needle to the left, is how we debunk and demystify these kinds of things that we've bought into and we've been indoctrinated to believe as a community, because a lot of the harmful things you see our community go for that's hard for us to convince them against is because they've been being fed it and enforced it for quite some time.
Yeah. The thing, yes, Olay, I don't disagree with you. I think I agree with you probably up until that fork in the road where we're about to go in different directions on this, because I think it's on purpose. I think they know. I think
a lot are. Eric Adams on purpose.
From Black Democrats in Atlanta who are participating. Andrew Dickens? I can't even remember his name good. I'm so upset with that Negro. But they do things. They do think they are so educated. They are so professional. They have been in this game. They're not new to this. They are true to this. You cannot tell me they have not taken into consideration the ramifications of their decisions. And I apply that to Joe Biden. I apply that to everybody, because you do not get as far as you do in this political system and not know the power of your philosophy. And what I've done for many years, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I gave them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they don't know. Maybe I could just explain it better. Maybe if I say it this way, maybe I do it and then one day I realized, oh, they knew the whole time.
Yeah.
They intended to move the goalposts. Yeah. They never intended to do right by us. And I don't care if they're Black, I don't care if they're white, I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. When they have sided with the police state and Capitol, they are going to do the same exact strategy, because they have the same playbook that's been literally printed out and sent state by state.
Agreed. I 100% agree. And I believe that they know that. What I believe is that it's become like what I mean to say this is this. When I say to Black people in my real life that I know, the average Black person I know in my life is not an abolitionist like me, or you know what I mean, or all the way to the left like me. They don't think or identify themselves as being against the Black community or Black people when they feel like some of these niggas just gotta get locked up, or you know what I mean? Or, like when they want to listen to the Dr. Umars and tell them, oh, some of these niggas gotta go for good. It's just some are a problem. Like that is a that kind of thinking that we are like just in our regular lives, just being upbrought in our own communities to believe that like some of us just a problem, some of them you can't do nothing, some people you can't help, you know what I mean? Just always looking at it from there is what I think is that belief system, like that not seeming bad, that not seeming innately problematic or anti-Black or innocuous, is by the time you combine that with power and access to money and blah blah blah, they're like, Some of these niggas, you know what I mean? And they're
Right.
okay with having their little black Hollywood, even though the like 60% of the black people in Atlanta are impoverished. You know, that's what I mean. But definitely that they bad. You know, I believe Eric Adams knows he's the devil. I know he wake up and say it every morning.
I think to Benjamin's point, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that on here, most of you at this point occupy the political organizing sphere more than I do. I've been more in like a literature sphere for the last few years. These niggas know. Like, and I'm not gonna name no names on here, but like I'll be in conversation talking about certain things and niggas be like, I ain't posting about that, my nigga, because fuck these niggas. I'm trying to get this bread. And that's
Come on.
verbatim. That is damn near verbatim. I'm talking about once, and I went to business school with niggas too, right? And every one of them, you know, some of them I still see in passing. Like, yo, you still on that? You on that old bullshit? You better focus on this bread. Like people know.
Yeah.
Those are actual conversations that happen.
Yeah,
I've been in the room with your favorite activists, and these are the conversations that they have. I would never, because I ain't no snitch, but I would never have, you know, I would never say those things. But this is true. Who do you, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, some days I'll be like, you know what, I'm gonna stand on business when I'm having these conversations because I know they're really important. And sometimes I do gotta disconnect. I gotta disconnect. I don't want to fight people at the family dinner table. I don't want to fight people when I'm just shopping for groceries. So, but I do understand, like, people do that. You would think they know. This is 100%. The ones that are especially higher up, you see them doing well. Like things are going for them. You know, they know, and they know what they had to do to get there. And if we look at their history, some things we've probably covered where we like, this particular nigga did this particular thing. And that's why we really don't want to rock with them. And I'm pretty sure we have old videos talking about Kamala Harris's history, now Fannie Willis, who we're riding with in the moment.
Not me.
But like, you know, we know that we may not, again, agree with their stuff, but those people, they do know. And some of them aren't doing it for the right reasons. That's why it's very important to go back to Ben's point. Listen, sometimes we just got to say F all them. Even though they're the facial representation, you know, they're the people that people post about. We really got to really connect here in these spaces, get to who we can get with, and who we can get with, who we can talk about, who we can place on our shows, who are doing the work and have these conversations, you know, more fluently, and be able to educate better. I think it's more important for that. Because them niggas, if it's up to them, if a check flies across their face, they'll just go for it. And we won't see them post anything important anymore.
It's always been like that too.
Can I correct? But let me can I just quick, because I'm the encyclopedia on Kamala Harris, so I ain't gonna be no punk and sit up here and act like that's not my girl, and I haven't supported her since way before the 2020 primary. So I just want to put that out there. But I'm not gonna get into my boom 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 on VP. I'm gonna go ahead. We gonna keep the conversation moving. But anybody that see this, they not gonna be like, oh, she just sat there and didn't say that.
Oh, she sat there.
No.
Yeah, that was me.
Right. I follow Nina. I follow her niece.
Yeah, but to Ben's point, it's always been like that. I would say also like back in the day, like in the 60s, like the preachers were like the first influencers, and so like it reminds me of like history of like Martin Luther King coming to Chicago, right, and doing the like anti-slums campaign, trying to get people like free housing, right. Yeah. The first people he had to deal with was the other black preachers in Chicago who were voting Democrat at the time. They were voting Democrat, Big Mayor Daley. And it was like, look, get out of Chicago. You messing up our money. We're being paid by the big Democrat mayor to basically stifle all protest, progressivism, and to like instill and go along with the okie doke. So yeah, we're stuck in this frame. I guess we just keep on repeating the same steps of like history. And I'm wondering, how do we break free?
Education.
You know, out of that dynamic.
Regime change.
Education. There's a reason why, to me, it's understated on purpose in the media, but it is not a coincidence that after the rise of Black Lives Matter and protests and all this, they've been after education tooth and fucking nail. It's education.
Facts.
Like, the Republicans do not have a playbook of teaching anybody anything. They just prevent people from learning. It's that simple. They prevent other people from
that.
hearing the message. And to be fair to some people, I think like it isn't all that everybody wants to be grifters or be selfish or to only advocate for, you know, what they think they're not going to get pushback. And I think what happens is people get disenchanted with trying to, your heart is in the place of wanting to help the Black community, right? You feel or you recognize, you know enough to realize pushing us left or us knowing these certain things or how these structures work harm us. It's really rough when the majority of the Black, not the majority or who you're talking to online, but in this discourse, you feel hold a lot of these views that you're trying to challenge, like you're trying to get them to let go of because it harms them, but they holding it tight, so they view you as the enemy. So you feel you're in a losing fight, getting cussed out every day, being talked about like you don't understand, like you're not really with the Black community. So eventually you feel like, well, I'm literally. I think people just get tired and they say, well, you know what? Let me just focus on what I could focus on. Let me focus on my life, my household, my children, my this, because why am I doing this? I feel like I get cussed out all the damn time by people. And very often, like the people I say this all the time, the people who will champion respectability politics to me will be the Black people who will be the first ones cut from the room because they don't meet the qualifications. Like they will be arguing with you to assume a mantle that actively hurts them. I'm like, I'll be fine.
Yes.
I'm a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, that's you, baby, they coming for. It'll be the people in the shade room comments telling you to be a classist, a leishy dickhead.
And your family members. It'd be people, your church friends, all the people at the clubs trying to have political conversations with you. It just be a whole lot. And but it's them. You're gonna have the issues. You're sitting here and you're not really thinking about your future. It's real cute right now. It was real cute when you was getting PPP loans. But what is your future gonna look like now? You want to vote for whoever? You want to just rock with these people? Let's be how these kids saying. Let's be effing for real, right? Let's be serious, right? Let's start really thinking about our futures and how that's going to affect us, our future families, how we want our housing to be, food, the economy. What does that look like for you? These are actually important things that will affect you.
I think we have to recognize that politics is not altruism. Nothing is going to be bestowed on us because we're Black and we deserve it or whatever. It's all transactional. And the part of that transaction is voting. And so when you don't vote, you're irrelevant. That's why you can, politicians can get away with disregarding certain demographics because those people don't vote or they don't vote in the margins they need to or in the proportions that they need to vote to. And so I think the same way that we want something in return, we have to recognize that we have something to give, and that is our vote. And so I think that, part of the problem is that people are looking at politics as though it's supposed to be charity, as though it's supposed to be a personality contest where I really like this person. I like who they are and what they're about. And it's all transactional. If you pick the right person, then more of those transactions will benefit you as opposed to harm you. If you don't pick anybody, then you're at the mercy of the people who are doing the picking. But everybody has some power and they're either using it or they're abdicating it. And I'm trying to get our people to understand that whatever you don't use, you're abdicating to somebody who has opposing views. Maybe that opposing view is a more conservative Democrat. Maybe that opposing view is a MAGA person. Either way, anytime you're not exercising your power, you're abdicating it.
Yeah, and y'all remember in all these, here's a great example. This is Beyonce's internet, right? And so we remember when the Beyonce just last minute wore the, what is his name, Beto hat, right? And he still didn't win. So it's if you really educate these people, Beyonce can't make folks go out and vote. If she can't do it, then I mean, like she came in last minute too. So they weren't educated. She was just Beyonce wearing a hat. What did the people learn from that? Not a thing. Just Beyonce wearing the hat of this person, And so if we have the power, because we do have it, to educate and to push, these our Black people into understanding why they should be voting, how they have, there's a power in their hands. People fought for this right for them. Historically, listen, this is your right. Don't let none of these people take it from you. The right, Republicans, conservatives want you to feel this way. They want you to feel like you have there's no choice for you. This isn't going to affect you either way. They want you to feel that way. And we need to definitely utilize this to put that out as a lie. That's lying, that's misinformation.
But I think, so I'm I'm a generational what is it? Descendant of what's ADO stand for again?
American descendant.
Oh yeah. So,
Descendant of the slaves.
So my family knows to vote Democrat, regardless of what's going on. My family knows, oh, we're gonna vote Democrat this and that, third. I think that to a certain extent, even and you bringing up Beto, Rebecca, and the Beyonce post, we said a little while ago that we need to be honest with Black voters. I think that was Charles who said that, right? Like we need to be honest with Black voters. The Democratic Party, whether we talking about the establishment or we talking about leftists or we talking about progressives, stop talking to niggas like they stupid, right? And I don't know. I feel like just like for me, the takeaway from this entire conversation is like stop talking to niggas like they stupid. Really do something. Nobody's dumb. We know that Biden has faults. We know that Biden has done some positive things. When Kamala goes to, talk at whatever with what's this nigga name? The short dude with the radio show. Goddamn the guy.
Charlamagne.
When she goes to him or whatever. When she go talk to him or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, well, my people, I grew up cooking da 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 da." Nigga, if you don't talk about some policies, man, like I don't want to. Nobody wants to like focus on that. And I'm not saying that because you have stuff there, but instead of trying to pander, right? The Beyonce could have probably actually got Beto some hits if Beyonce would have posted about some policies instead of posting with a Beto hat, right? If y'all want Black people to do certain things, stop treating niggas like they dumb. Have real conversations about what you have done and what you haven't done, and that's where you start. Stop pandering.
But I think to be fair, that's exactly what she has been doing. I remember when she was on Charlamagne's show, in that particular interview, trust me, like I said, I'm an encyclopedia. So she talked about her rent relief. She talked about the LIFT Act. It's been a long time. The LIFT Act, giving people $500 a month cash payments, which is what they ended up doing under the administration with the child tax credit. She talked about all those things. What went viral? Smoking weed and Tupac. When she was on Charlamagne's show at the beginning of the administration. Now, I'm not a Charlamagne fan, be clear, okay? But she talked about what they're doing around lead pipes. She talked about the child tax credit. What went viral? Charlamagne, clapping back at her about Biden. So the problem isn't as much whether or not policy is being discussed. The policy is that the problem is there's no appetite for policy discussions in terms of what.
Hold on, and I know Fred, you about to say disagree, but I agree. Hold on, I know Fred about to say how much he disagree, but I agree because I'll see people say things. They'll be so fucking. Every time Charlamagne says something about politics, it trends, and people will be so fucking mad to be Black people talking about, oh, why is he the person people listening to? Why are they going there? And for this reason? This is what you're watching. You're talking about it. It's trending. People go and watch The Breakfast Club. The reality is they go and watch The Breakfast Club and whatever and share from these outlets more than our stuff. People will be like, why? They will criticize The Breakfast Club. I've seen this discussion recently. The Breakfast Club will have on every damn Republican candidate they have, and they will have no problem with that. The Black people in the comments watching that talking about they like Larry Elder, he cooking all this foolishness. Then the minute the Democrats go up there, they'll be like, why are the Democrats going on places like this? This is where they think that the Black community gets their news and yada yada yada.
But that's not what I'm saying, though. But that's not what I'm saying. I don't have an issue if you going on The Breakfast Club. I think that you have to meet people where they are, right? That's been my argument. Like, make the TikToks, put out the content, so on and so forth. But what we're doing is, because you said she was speaking of policies, but she's doing policy and pandering. It should be hashtag policy and pandering, right? And I'm tired of the pandering because the reality of it is you can go to The Breakfast Club and really get to the nitty and gritty of things, right? Really talk about the meat of what you're trying to accomplish, what you haven't accomplished, what you want to accomplish, so on and so forth.
But look at the numbers on and this is genuine, right? I have a Breakfast Club interview. Look at the numbers when people go and talk about the meat and the seriousness and the policy on the Breakfast Club versus when they go and talk about foolishness or if they go say something. People go and they flock to foolish. That is true. I like whether it because of the algorithm or engagement or outrage or whatever's happening to you. But people watch shit when it's that, and I think that's actually that's a whole different conversation on how we be messaging and stuff and yada yada yada. But people don't. I think the Democrats are not doing it right in terms of trying to figure out how to meet that middle ground.
But can I just quickly say I make a variety of content. The shit that gets reposted, I remember I went completely ballistic on Lil Boosie because he was blaming Kamala Harris for Brittany Griner being in Russia. And it's like, what is she supposed to do about that? This is an adversary, blah, blah. That was reposted everywhere. Do you know how many videos I've made on policy where I've talked about Black maternal health? I made a whole video that was 10 minutes talking about a misunderstanding or a person who misinterpreted some things around mortgages and interest rates and fees and that shit doesn't go viral. It's when I'm acting like a maniac and I'm cussing motherfucker this, that's going to be reposted out of all the things that I do. That's just the nature of the system. I could have said a million things in an hour-long interview. What's going to get posted is if I say motherfucker, whoa, 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 da 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 da. That's the system,
which is
100%.
Which has brought me back to.
Oh, you're both 100% right. What I'm saying is I guess I'm going back to the original part of the conversation. We're talking about getting people on the fringe though, right? So if you're talking about, how to keep people engaged who's either A, already voting for the Democratic Party, or B, don't really care, that's a different conversation if you're just trying to be popular. But if you were trying to get people who are leftists or people who are, focused on Gaza or all these different things right now, then you actually really do need to be leaning more into what you have accomplished. Because realistically, you're going to get your 90 some odd %. And you being on the shade room or not being on the shade room is not really going to change that 90 something %. But what is going to change something is when I go and I'm talking to people, let's say, who are, who view themselves as leftists, let's say. There are people who view themselves as leftists and they think that the most left you can go is actually heading back towards the right in some instances because, that's how certain...
Yeah, they go so left, they far right.
That happens at times. And when that happens, niggas want to hear policy.
Can I ask a question? Is there a policy that you are happy to have seen implemented at any point over the past almost 4 years?
Me personally?
You personally.
I'll give you a really good example. I think recently Biden actually doing what he can to cancel certain student loans, right? Like he has gone around the system and figured out ways for people who have who are undersaved to get student loans canceled, right? Yeah. Great, cool. How are you actually promoting that? How's that getting out there, right? Like, how are people finding out about that in the community, so on and so forth? Because all I hear from people is he promised he was going to do this, he couldn't do that. So even if you don't know that he couldn't do it because of the Supreme Court, what you should know is that he did something.
Yes, which is why I think but when you say this, people go, but we shouldn't have to do it. The Democrats should be doing it, but I don't care. To me, it's like, it's not about the Democrats. It's about me and us and what we do. This is my original. How do we better get these things to them? How do we find a way to make the medium of how we get out the policy discussions that people are not inclined to click on or they might think is boring? How do we package that in a way to people that feeds their kind of entertainment world? Which is why, like I was saying earlier, I have a Eric Adams doc on my page that has like almost 200,000 views that people watch. Because I realize y'all will get into my I hate Eric Adams if I say fuck this person because everybody's a hater. You know what I mean? So I can get you all this information and package this to you in this entertaining way around hating this person. So when I realized that, I'm like, I talk about Eric Adams all the time. I have other videos on my page about Eric Adams, but it wasn't couched as, hey, here's a documentary about hating this guy. So now I realize, like, I just finished writing and I'm going to record it after I finish talking to y'all, the Greg Abbott equivalent. So I was like, you know what? How do we get all this stuff about Texas and all these things that if I tried to have it as here's the policy stuff about Texas and that, I'd be like, I'm fucking bored. But if I couch it and, I hate Greg, so I'm like, okay, that's the way I think I can go about doing this across the country. All these politicians, I can do this. I can make this entertaining and feed to this how we do it. And I think that's why I'm wondering if we need to start switching the conversation to from what the Democrats aren't doing and what to how do we be better effective messengers. How do we meet people like where they're at, not just where they're at these mediums, but how they want to be met. You know what I mean? Like speaking to them in a way that they are interested in.
That's yes. I always come after you when I have a slight disagreement. Everything you said, absolutely agree with. But here's the thing, though. I think we'd have to add to it. I think we have to also stop caring about the sensitivity and the feelings of some of the people we have to talk to, especially when they have bought into ideas that are just stupid and just dumb. And there's really no other way to explain it. There's no kind of policy way to help somebody understand that you bought into anti-vax messaging. You've bought into, now you think masks don't work. No, that's just stupid, right? Like that's not, there's no grounding there. Or when you have people who want to support Donald Trump for specific reasons, if we continue to give amount of credibility or credence or just allow people to have this space where we don't go after their space the way they come after ours. You have to understand, we give these people the benefit of the doubt. You can't be uncivil to people who are anti-vax. You can't be uncivil to people who are voting for Donald Trump. You have to sit there and have and engage in their debates and all of their bigotry. Why? Why should we do that? If you want entertainment, I think the first thing that we should do is take the people who are doing the things that are outright ignorant and stupid and tell them, listen, the reason they don't want you to wear a mask is because they can't see you and use facial recognition technology, and you believe them, dummy. That's I think that's all we can do these days.
Can I say two things to Fred's point and to your point, Olay? Like the SAVE plan, that was something I talked about on my show. And I had callers, I have a live call-in radio show that called in, one person, $300,000 student loan debt canceled. This is a Saturday, 3 p.m. That people don't know what I'm going to talk about in advance. One person, $100,000 student loan canceled because of the Biden administration. And I made a video on, posted on social media. I had a lot of people, I'm going to go sign up as a result of this. Should I have got paid for that? Hell yeah, I should have got paid because I'm advertising it, But the reality is, to Fred's point, only at the time, it was like 6 million people had signed up for it out of 30-something million people eligible. So there's a messaging gap and there's an information gap. But to your point, Olay, about, hate sales, I'm rephrasing it. But when I'm making a video, it depends on my audience. There's some videos where I'm like, all right, if I'm like, motherfucker, won't, that they tuning out. They don't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? And then some videos, that's the energy that I'm going to give. Even though it may not seem like I'm being strategic, I try to be cognizant of who is my target audience for this particular message that I'm trying to get out. And I try to make sure that I'm bringing them in the tone and in the messaging that's going to resonate with them. Sometimes, to Ben's point, you gotta, clap back and you can't be civil with it. But there are times, particularly when we're talking to our people, that you might have to be a little delicate. You might have to watch maybe some of what you're going to say and how you say it, because you're not trying to alienate those people that are gettable. The key is, if they're gettable people, then you might make slight adjustments.
Yeah, whether you want them to vote or not. Yeah, we had a moment of silence. We had a mute, and I messed it up.
Yeah.
Everybody on mute.
And then I messed it up.
Ben was ready.
No, it's all good. Go ahead, Olay. We've been here for a good
No,
bit.
this is beautiful. I feel like we finally got to some semblance of gavels, like we can wrap it up. Oh no, this is great. We've got to do this again.
Yes. No, we should do this again, because these conversations are going to be very necessary in this time leading up, to the election. So this is why we got to do what we need to do. They got boots on the ground in the street, right? But we can use our platforms to be those boots on the ground in these virtual streets. So.
And I didn't want to end this video without y'all recognizing that Benjamin, Charles, and Frederick are dressed alike.
Come on, man. There you go. And this is
something about that Marvin Gaye beanie. I don't know what it is. October London.
It's the vibe.
There's gonna be an op-ed on Beating Bros sometime coming.
Yes, there's something going on.
He's gonna talk about how I was like, so are y'all all bald? And he was like, no, it ain't even like
It can't go like that.
Olay, I just want to say though, I also think that this is important because all of us have to acknowledge, and I think this conversation between us, we don't all have the exact same politic, but we all have the exact same goals. Right?
Yeah.
We all want the same for the Black community. I think one of the things that's beautiful about this that really hurt me in 2020 was I feel like there was so much tribalism around these white candidates that people started fracturing the Black community. All we really have is ourselves. So this conversation is important, right? That's why even when there was plenty of things with Reese, I'm like, oh yeah, I agree. I'm not a Kamala supporter, but I definitely agree with what you just said here. I agree with what you said there. I agree with this. I agree with that, because that's important, right? Because at the end of the day, you a sister. At the end of the day, Benjamin's a brother. Charles is a brother. Rebecca's a sister. You a sister, Olay. So we need to, even if we don't agree on everything, our strategic goal is to move our community forward.
Yeah. Can I say, to your point, I think when we talk specifics, when we talk policy, I think we'll realize we're not, even though we might have different rhetorical strategies or we might have different priorities that we talk about in terms of on a theoretical level, when we talk policy, there usually isn't that much daylight between us. So I hope that the next conversation, each of us kind of talking about the policies that matter, I think that will be very educational for people, because when you get into the receipts and the specifics, I think that is so illuminating for people. And I think that's empowering to people to know what's happening. And if something's not happening, all right, maybe one of us knows legislation, to your point, Olay, earlier, that's being proposed, or a number of things. So I want us to have more of these conversations, but I want to include more policy as well.
Oh, so what you're saying is you're going to be on Olay and Friends again. Thank you, Reese. I love hearing you admit that on the thank you on the recorded line.